provides support to families who are struggling with their teenagers. FAP can help you reduce conflict and connect you to family counseling, substance abuse services, crisis intervention, and other supports. For more information, call 311.
Hi, I'm City Controller Scott Stringer. As the city's financial watchdog, it's my job to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in city government, and I need your help. If you know of someone ripping off the taxpayers, of city property being wasted or misused, please let me know by making an anonymous call to 212-NO-WASTE. That's 212-669-2783.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hello, I'm Donna Corrado, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. New York Connects is a trusted place for people of all ages, regardless of income or disability, to discover ways to remain independent at home and in their communities. And if you are in need of skilled nursing care or residential placements, we're here to help. To learn more, call 311 and ask about New York Connects today. Thank you.
Did you know Metro Plus Health Plan, part of NYC Health and Hospitals, is the plan of choice for 500,000 New Yorkers? For nearly a decade, Metro Plus has been the top-rated health plan in customer satisfaction. Metro Plus offers affordable health insurance coverage for New Yorkers of all incomes, including a plan with $0 to $20 monthly deductibles. Find out more at metroplus.org.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
Criminal record, you can work with that. I'm Human Rights Commissioner Carmelyn P. Morales. It's now illegal for most NYC employers to ask about criminal records of job applicants in ads, applications, or in interviews before making a job offer. When employers consider qualifications first, more New Yorkers go to work. That makes businesses strong and powers our economy. To file a complaint or report a violation, and for employers who want free trainings on the law, contact the Commission on Human Rights by calling 311 or visit nyc.gov/humanrights.
Comenzando el 1 de enero, hay una mejor manera de llegar al trabajo con la Ley de Beneficios de Transporte de la Ciudad de Nueva York. La mayoría de negocios con 20 empleados o más de tiempo completo en la Ciudad de Nueva York deben ofrecer un programa de ahorros para transporte al trabajo. Tanto los empleados como los empleadores ahorran. Llame al 311 para aprender más sobre esta ley.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
I'm Roy Mogolansky, Executive Director for the City of New York Office of Payroll Administration. Did you know city employees can save money on commuting expenses to work? When you sign up for the city's WageWorks Commuter Benefits Program, the funds for your commuting costs are set aside from your paycheck before taxes are taken out. So you pay less in taxes, up to $1,200 a year if you take mass transit, and up to $2,400 a year if parking is part of your commute. Visit getwageworks.com/NYC.
Attention all New York City vendors. This is Lisette Camilo, Commissioner of the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. As of July 1st, 2016, email will be the primary way to notify vendors of available business opportunities for a request for bids and proposals. Be sure to enroll, update your business information, and include your email address in the Payee Information Portal at nyc.gov/PIP or call 311 for assistance.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is New York City Controller Scott Stringer. It's my job to protect the city's bottom line and ensure that every New Yorker has equal economic opportunity and access to government. My Community Action Center is here to help. If you need assistance from my office, from questions about your pension, a claim against the city, or even concerns about a possible labor law violation, call us at 212-669-3916.
Hello, this is Donna Corrado, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. Elder abuse comes in many forms and may include financial exploitation, physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Concerned family members, friends, and neighbors can help. If you hear threats or yelling, see bruising or other suspicious behavior, and your gut tells you something is wrong, reach out to a trained professional for advice. Call 911 in an emergency or 311 and ask to speak with an elder abuse specialist and do your part to protect our city seniors.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Did you know that NYC Health and Hospitals serves 1.4 million New Yorkers? Our health system includes hospitals, neighborhood health centers, nursing homes, and post-acute care centers. We are a home care agency and a health plan, Metro Plus. Our talented and diverse workforce is uniquely able to offer high-quality and culturally responsive health care to patients and families. Visit us at nychealthandhospitals.org.
Brooklyn Bridge Park keeps getting better. Hi, I'm Regina Meyer, president of Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're thrilled to welcome visitors to another exciting season on the Brooklyn waterfront. This summer, come visit our brand new marina, climb the bouldering wall at Main Street in Dumbo, or have a barbecue at the Picnic Peninsula. There is truly something for everyone. Visit brooklynbridgepark.org or call 311 for more information. See you at the park.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
Hello, this is Gladys Carrion, Commissioner for the city's Administration for Children's Services. Is your teen acting out, running away from home, skipping school, using drugs? Did you know that the city's Family Assessment Program, FAP, provides support to families who are struggling with their teenagers? FAP can help you reduce conflict and connect you to family counseling, substance abuse services, crisis intervention, and other supports. For more information, call 311.
Hi, I'm City Controller Scott Stringer. As the city's financial watchdog, it's my job to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in city government, and I need your help. If you know of someone ripping off the taxpayers, of city property being wasted or misused, please let me know by making an anonymous call to 212-NO-WASTE. That's 212-669-2783.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hello, I'm Donna Corrado, Commissioner of the New York City Department for the Aging. New York Connects is a trusted place for people of all ages, regardless of income or disability, to discover ways to remain independent at home and in their communities. And if you are in need of skilled nursing care or residential placements, we're here to help. To learn more, call 311 and ask about New York Connects today. Thank you.
Did you know Metro Plus Health Plan, part of NYC Health and Hospitals, is the plan of choice for 500,000 New Yorkers? For nearly a decade, Metro Plus has been the top-rated health plan in customer satisfaction.
Okay, good afternoon. This afternoon's crime conference briefing will discuss very specifically the month that has just passed, August. We will also take a look at the context of the summer months, June, July, August, in historical terms, and then we will take a look at year-to-date. I will be introducing the mayor in just a moment. At the table with me also, on my left, your right, is Dermot Shea, Deputy Commissioner, who will provide the overall crime briefing. Chief O'Neill, Chief of Department, Jim O'Neill, who will discuss a summary of the weekend events, the Labor Day weekend events in the city. Over to my right, your left, we have at the far end of the table Bob Boyce. Bob will discuss some arrests that have been made in reference, or an arrest that's been made in reference to the Juvet murders, and provide additional details on that, as well as is our practice if you have questions and other crimes that you or your readers or your viewers might be interested in. We also have to Bob's left is Chief of Patrol Carlos Gomez, who's this summer, among his many activities with the various events that we're involved with, has been dealing with the issue of the off-the-road dirt bikes, ATVs, as they're more commonly referred to, something that we've had great success dealing with this summer. He'll briefly provide an update on that. And then Ben Tucker, our first Deputy Commissioner. This is my last formal press briefing around the issue of crime summary. It's a practice that we began, as you're aware, within several months of assuming this position when Mayor de Blasio appointed me in 2014. It is part of the increasing efforts to have more transparency around this very particular issue. And I thank the mayor for his attendance at many of these events. Additionally, what we've tried to do with these crime briefings is expose you to the larger leadership team of the department that you've now all become very familiar with, most of whom are at this table, to impress upon you the depth of talent, skills, and capabilities in this organization that are reflected in these briefings. I would point out, as is indicated in the press release, I believe that many of you have already received, that 1994, when I first became commissioner, was at that time the safest summer that the department had experienced in modern times. And as I'm leaving the stage, that as Dermot Shea will be reflecting, the summer of 2016 is the safest in the last 20 some odd years. So I'm leaving as I began, with very good crime numbers, and it's something that I hope that as we go forward, there's an appreciation that what we try to do with these crime briefings is impress upon you that from time to time there will be a spike in certain crimes, but that we in the department have gotten very good at precision policing, focusing on those spikes very quickly as they emerge of 2, 3, 4 incidents before they're 20 or 30. And that trying to impress upon you and the media as you attempt to tell the story of crime in the city, that you understand that you have to look at the larger picture and not just the immediate spike or incident, because it's in the longer term, whether it's the 30 days that we report normally, or in this case, the 90 days of the summer, or the first 9 months of this year. That's where you actually get the clearer picture of, is crime up or is it down? I'm pleased to report that during the mayor and our time together with this leadership team, that crime over these 3 years has continued to go down, something that was very much in doubt back in 2013. And it's my projection that as I step from the stage and the mayor appoints Jim O'Neill as my successor, that I think you'll see a continued prioritization, focus, and similar results going forward. With that, it's my privilege to introduce Mayor de Blasio at our last crime conference together. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I'm so glad you said yes, and I congratulate you, Commissioner Bratton, for all you've achieved in your second tour of duty as Commissioner of this police force. And I really want to tell you it's been an honor to serve with you for 32 months now. 32 months we've been able to provide these briefings. And it's extraordinary what the Commissioner and this leadership team and the men and women of the NYPD have achieved over these 32 months. But what I want to emphasize is we have to put Commissioner Bratton's work in lifetime context. So I want to give you a statistic that he hasn't shared with you, but I think it's important to understand. Around the time before Commissioner Bratton took over his first time, and a lot of you remember this, New York City had, in some years in the early 90s, over 2,000 murders a year. It's because of what Commissioner Bratton put in place and so many other great leaders of this department put in place, creating ComStat and precision policing and a whole new approach that from 1994 to present, so much has changed. And this progress has been sustained. You look around the country, we see some very painful situations in other cities. This city has the blessing, because of this hard work that was done, of being able to say for 22 straight years we've been moving in the right direction. Always, always more work to do. Never a question about that. But for 22 years, moving in the right direction. So this is a way of giving you the ultimate statistic that if Commissioner Bratton and Jack Maple and so many other good people had not created ComStat, had not put us on the pathway of precision policing, had not made the changes to make this police force so much more effective, if we, God forbid, had stayed around that kind of level of homicides, literally 29,000 more New Yorkers would have been lost to us in the intervening years. 29,000 people who I believe their lives were saved because of the changes that were made starting back in 1994. That's as many people as live in Red Hook, Brooklyn, or Little Neck, Queens, or Peter Cooper Village in Manhattan. So it's clear that we have always challenges to focus on. There's always another problem we have to address. But it's also important sometimes to take stock of what progress was made and what innovation led to. And Commissioner, just want to thank you again. I will never tire of thanking you for all that you've done for this city. Now, I want to thank all the leadership here today, because in today's dynamic, the numbers we're about to go over with you are the result of their hard work, and again, the hard work of so many men and women in this police department. And precision policing is making the difference. You'll hear from Deputy Commissioner Dermot Shea the details, but here's the bottom line. Summer of 2016, June through August, those 3 months were in fact the safest summer since we began keeping statistics. Overall index crimes, and again reminding you that's major violent crimes and robberies. Overall index crimes saw a major drop of 5.6% compared to those 3 months of the last summer. In the same time frame, shootings down 3.5%, robberies down almost 10% compared to last summer. This means the people of this city are safer. It obviously also means our officers are safer. The more we succeed at combating crime, and I want to emphasize some of the extraordinary efforts that have been taken over these last months, particularly the gang takedowns, which have been at a record clip. Those gang takedowns not only take guns off the streets, they take a lot of the people who do the most violence off the streets. And that has been one of the great successes of recent months. But all that being true does not take away from us the sense that we have a lot more work to do. I always talk about the fact that Bill Bratton doesn't rest on his laurels, doesn't even know how to rest on his laurels, and that's been a great example to all of us. We know there's a lot more work to do. We literally do not accept a single homicide, a single shooting as acceptable, and therefore we've got our work cut out for us going forward to continue this progress, to make sure all our neighborhoods are safe, to make sure people feel safe. We are painfully reminded of that responsibility from the events of this weekend. Very, very powerful plan was put in place, tremendous preparations with the community and by the NYPD. As you heard, ultimately twice as many police officers as we've used previously at the Juvet event. The light towers in place. A lot of the right things were done in advance, including targeting gangs and getting additional guns off the street. But we have more to do. Even with the right steps being taken, there's more we have to do, and we have to find new ways and additional ways to address this situation. So we can be proud of the successes while continuing to understand our obligations and the need for further innovation. As we look forward to the leadership of Jimmy O'Neill and the deepening of the neighborhood policing program, that spirit of innovation will continue and will deepen, and that's what will take us forward. A few words in Spanish. Este verano ha sido el más seguro desde que mantenemos estadísticas del crimen en nuestra ciudad. En general, los robos y crímenes violentos han caído 5.6% en comparación al año pasado. Sabemos que siempre hay mucho más por hacer y vamos a buscar la manera de enfrentar la violencia que vimos en Juve este fin de semana. Nuestra estrategia de precisión policial sigue haciendo a Nueva York la ciudad grande más segura del país. With that, I'd like to turn to Dermot Shea to go over the details of the numbers for August and for this summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when we take a look at the summer of 2016, and again, as the mayor said, we're talking about June, July, and August, ending on August 31st. What we saw was a lowest in terms of overall index crime for those summer months that we have ever seen in the CompStat era, down about 5.6%. Briefly, lowest shooting incidents for summer, 3 months, lowest robberies, burglaries, and stolen vehicles. We recorded for those 3 months 100 homicides in New York City, and that was not the lowest we've seen. But it's interesting the range that we have come down to. The last 3 years are the lowest 3 summers on record now in terms of homicides, and it's fluctuated between 92 to 96 to this year, the level of 100. So the last 3 years are the 3 lowest that we have on record. Where does that bring us today now, 8 months into the year? We sit about 2% down in overall index crime. Again, that's the lowest in the CompStat era. Murders, at the end of August, we were down 10 compared to the same period last year. That's a decrease of over 4%. That's tied for the second fewest murders recorded in the first 8 months of any year. And that's behind 2014. Shooting incidents. At the end of August, for the first 8 months, we were down 108 shooting incidents. It's almost a 14% decrease. Again, the lowest in the CompStat era. So the overall trending, whether you're looking at summer months, we'll talk about the month of August in a minute, or the first 8 months, all continues to go down across broad categories. For the first 8 months of the year, unprecedented levels continue in burglaries, robberies, and stolen cars, levels that we've never seen before. Robbery down 6% this year, burglary down over 12%, and stolen cars almost 11% reduction this year alone. Transit crime, something that we've talked about earlier, is now down system-wide over the entire New York City for the first 8 months, and it's down 1.7%. Spend a moment on housing crime. Housing crime is up this year. It's up 6.6% in overall index crime. Comes out to just under 200 crimes citywide. What we're seeing in housing is what we said before, behind closed doors, something that we are by no means willing to accept, but it's proving stubborn to knock that crime down. Domestic crime is about 1/3 of overall crime in housing. But just some good news on housing. The shooting incident level that we have seen this year occurring on housing authority property, we have never seen a lower shooting incident number since we've recorded shooting incidents. Never lower. Tied with 2013 with the 130 incidents where we're currently at the end of August. So that's something to be very proud of. Similar when you look at homicides. If you look at the CompStat sheet, we've recorded 36 at the end of August, 36 homicides on housing property. 33 of them occurred actually this year, with 3 occurring in prior years. We've never had fewer than 33 homicides occurring on housing. So there are always spots that we're concentrating on, but these are within housing, some things that we're particularly proud of. The violence associated, unprecedented record lows. For the month of August now, we'll start quoting some statistics, and some of them are playing behind me on the screens. When you look at the summer of 2016, we had less crime in 1 month, in the summer of 2016, 27,000 index crimes than we would have in the entire summer in 1995. When you take into account population, 8.5 million, when you take into account tourism, and then you start looking at these numbers, that we have less crime now in 1 month than we had in an entire summer years ago. Pretty staggering statistics. For the month of August, overall index crime down over 9%. All index crime categories, all 7 majors, were down. Every borough of New York City was down in overall crime in August. What we did see is a fluctuation in the shooting incident level in the month of August. 145 shooting incidents recorded. That's up from 122 in August of 2015. When you look at the increase, which is over 18%, extremely in a couple precincts. And I'm talking about 3 in particular in Brooklyn, which when I caught this statistic, it made me sit back for a second. 6-7 precinct, 7-5 precinct, 7-3 precinct. 3 precincts out of 77 accounted for 21% of all the shootings in August. And we know that the shootings that occur in those precincts, and then you start looking at individual blocks, 99% of the precincts are in very good shape, just localized conditions that are driving violence in this particular month. And you can rest assured that those conditions, which the mayor alluded to, driven by gangs, is already being dealt with. So 10 precincts in New York City in August accounted for 50% of the shootings. 3 precincts accounted for 21%. So very localized, very painted into particular individuals involved in gangs. You can just look at some of the incidents this weekend, and it will show you exactly what we are talking about. So overall, very solid statistics, an increase in August shootings, and that ends 10 months in a row under 100 shootings. So we are very eager in September to get right back to that.
Thank you, Dermot. Chief Bob Shea will give you an update on investigations into the events occurring during the Juve Festival. I'd like to compliment him and his detectives for their very quick resolution of one of those matters, which we'll now update you on. Second one, we also have a much clearer picture of what we believe occurred, resulting in the death, that second death at that event. Bob?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to bring your attention to the homicide of Tiara Poirier, the young lady shot at Juve Festival on Empire Boulevard. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, she's walking with some friends, 3 other girlfriends. She's somewhat separated because of the crowd, about 20 feet away, in between different groups walking. Those 3 friends are hear a shot go out, and they see their friend fall, at which point they go over and render aid. Nobody around can tell us exactly who did this, but we recover a 9mm shell casing from that scene. We set up a crime scene. This young lady's just a stellar person, student at St. John's. No issues in her life whatsoever, on number 4 either. So fast forward to that's about 4:15. At 8 o'clock in the morning, a male named Reginald Moyse is arrested for DWI at Parkside and Parade Place. He's driving on 3 wheels. He's apparently intoxicated. He crashes into 3 cars. He's arrested. Now, he's important because at 11:20, someone wakes up. He makes a phone call directly after the shooting, and tells a friend of his, "Would you mind if I put my gun at your apartment?" which is at 480 Montgomery Street. She says, yes. He goes over there. At this point, he fires 2 rounds into the wall, and then he breaks a mirror, and he cuts his hand, and there's blood on the mirror. He then leaves and gets into a car and gets arrested at 8 o'clock in the morning. We start putting things together. We go to the scene where the shots fired. Now, that's not called into about 11 o'clock in the afternoon, the shots fired call. So we go over there. On the scene, we find an aluminum jacketed 9mm. It's this round right here. It's not particularly common, but we've seen them before. This aluminum jacketed 9mm is also at the crime scene on Empire Boulevard. We start to get suspicious. Could this be our guy? We then, at this point during the day, send it down to the lab, and they make the comparison. They make this the same gun. He leaves the Glock 9mm there. We have it in our custody as well. Right now, we're checking it for fibers and DNA. So he's arrested for the DWI. When they pull him out of the car, his hand is cut up and it's tied off with a Caribbean flag. It all starts to fit together. We then talk to his friends, and they tell one of the individuals he spoke to said, "I think I shot somebody on the parade ground, and I didn't know the gun was loaded." We then begin to speak to him in the in 7-1 Detective Squad, where he goes on to state that he thinks he shot somebody. The gun went off. I thought it was loaded. I'm not sure. And then he requests an attorney. So right now, he's being charged with murder to depraved indifference for shooting Tiara Poirier. And that's where we are with the case right now. We still have a long way to go. We have more ballistic evidence to check. We have more blood evidence to check. But we believe this is the individual going forward. The other shooting at the scene, the other homicide of Tyreek Borrell, we don't know a lot about this yet. We're still peeling this back as we go forward. He went there with someone. Those people he went with left him there. He was shot one time with a small caliber weapon in the chest. The autopsy is going on right now. We'll find out exactly where he was hit, but it was either by a 25 caliber or a 380. Those shell cases were found at the scene. So right now, no one's with him. He gets shot. He walks over to a bench, and he actually goes into a unconsciousness. He's taken to the hospital, and on the way to the hospital, they realize when they see the bullet wound. They did not know at that point he was shot. They thought he was either intox or suffering from an overdose. So we have a lot more work to go with that. Right now, we don't have a lot to tell you on it. We've looked at his Facebook. We're going into different things. We'll talk to his mom. A very sad situation. Find out who he went to the event with. The other thing I have for you today, on Saturday, we made an arrest in the stabbing homicide of Nazma Kanam, excuse me. She's a Bangladeshi female. You'll see to my hard left. If you remember, we put out a video of that individual who we liked on Normal Road in the 107 precinct. Detectives, this happened Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the evening. We went back to that scene, kept going back, kept canvassing. On one of our videos, we saw a woman walking a dog. We hadn't talked to her yet, so we finally contacted her, and she lived on Normal Road. When going back there, detectives Kevin Granger and Anthony Bonilla pulled up to the scene, put the young lady in the car, was ready to drive back when they seen this fellow walking by. And that's him in the middle in the yellow shirt. And you can see the striking look he had. He also had a pair of white Adidas on, too, which also called to their attention. They immediately asked the young lady to go home, and they engaged him in conversation. He agreed to go back to the 107 precinct, which time we started interviewing him. Sometime in Saturday evening, he admits that we show him a picture of him in the video, that person in the video on your right. He says, that's not me. An hour later, we bring in another detective, and he admits to that detective, I'll get you his name in a minute, Munoz, I believe, says, yeah, that's me. That's me in the picture. An hour later, he admits to robbing this woman, walking up out of his house. Now, he lives right there. It was a strange crime scene because we didn't see a lot of people running away. It was at 9 o'clock at night. Not a lot was going on in the neighborhood, so we were a little surprised. So we looked at, he started giving us information. He said she was carrying a bag. I wanted to take the bag from her. I wanted the property. He stabbed her one time in the chest, killing her. And then he ran away. He then came back around and went back into his house, which is right there. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment on the block on Normal Road. So everything he gave us in that interview, which is on videotape, rang true from the physical evidence we picked up. We believe he is our person. We believe him now was a robbery. He works as a busboy or messenger in an Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. No other prior incidents with him at all, either criminal or emotional. He got into this country about a year ago from Colombia. And that's where we stand with the case right now. We believe it to be true, believe this to be our person. And that's what I have.
Chief O'Neill's going to give you a couple of quick summaries, and then Chief Gomez will give a summary of the activity relative to the ATV dirt bikes initiatives over the summer.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So just to keep in mind to what Dermot spoke about the summer crime stats, just keep in mind that we didn't have a summer all-out this year. We had a limited all-out. We transferred about 200 people permanently out of their administrative responsibilities back into operational commands. And we didn't have that summer violence reduction OT that we had in 2015. So all that good work was done at a reduced cost. Just to put in perspective this past weekend, and I'm going to go into a little bit of what happened in Juve and the West Indian Day Parade, but I just want to give you some comparative statistics here. Shooting incidents over Labor Day, we look back to 2003. There was a high of 40 back in 2011. The year before that was a very good year. We had 12. This year, we had 21. So there was a high of 40 shooting incidents back in 11. We had 21 shooting incidents over this past weekend. We took the same look with homicides. There was a high of 10 in 2005. This past weekend, we had 7. We also had 4 last year and 7 in 2014. So just looking at Juve, The parade commenced at 3:44 hours. The last float was off the route at 0950 hours, and we estimated the crowd size to be 250,000. And with that, we had 11 felony arrests, 4 misdemeanor arrests, and 32 C summonses. C summonses, criminal court summonses. Just some notable arrests at 10 after 10 on September 4th, which would be Sunday night. We had a 18-year-old male was smoking a marijuana cigarette at Carroll and Utica, and upon apprehension, SRG recovered a loaded firearm from him. And then at 12:05 hours, that would be Monday morning, we had a 17-year-old male was recognized by SRG for a previous shooting from a wanted poster. They went and they apprehended him, but before they apprehended him, they saw him pass a loaded .22 Beretta pistol to a 16-year-old female. So we recovered that firearm from the female also. And at 4:30, we had a 16-year-old male and a 21-year-old male were again observed smoking a lit marijuana cigarette by SRG. And upon apprehension, we recovered a Smith & Wesson 9mm handgun and a .40 caliber handgun from both of those people. And then at 6:23 hours, we had a male 17-year-old was apprehended by the 8-8 crime units at 1369 Union Street after a foot pursuit, and we recovered another firearm. So looking at the West Indian Day Parade, the parade started at 11:50 hours. The last float was off the route at 8:14 p.m., and we estimated that crowd size to be about 1.1 million. The activity was 7 felony arrests, 10 misdemeanors, and 24 criminal court summonses with no notable incidents during the parade.
Thank you, Jimmy. Carlos, if you can do a quick summary on
Sure.
bike initiatives, please.
Sure. To demonstrate the department's commitment for Vision Zero, we put a greater emphasis this year on ATV, dirt bike, and motorcycle enforcement, especially in the summer months when that behavior increases. And I think the results are positive. Our efforts have resonated throughout the city. And these initiatives that we do are not geared towards legit motorcycle clubs, individuals enjoying their rides throughout the city, obeying all the traffic laws. They're geared towards the reckless driving of motorcycles, ATVs, and dirt bikes, which ATVs and the dirt bikes are illegal to operate here in the city. Seizures. Our seizures this year are up 52% over the same period last year. We have seized 1,531 motorcycles, dirt bikes, and ATVs. Most of those are up in the Bronx and Manhattan North, which also are 2 of the boroughs that we get most of the complaints from the communities, as well as the 9/11 complaints. And speaking of 9/11 calls this summer, the last month in August, those 9/11 calls were down 30%, which kind of demonstrates there's less of these motorcycles and ATVs in the street. I also have statistics for ATV collisions, and those are down 65%, 21 versus 60. So, that tells me that our efforts have really paid off. Less of these vehicles are on the streets, and that translates into less individuals getting injured by these. Motorcycle collisions are also down 2% this year versus last year. And we utilize social media to demonstrate our success. If you check every precinct in the city, you'll see photos of their seizures. And this serves 2 purposes. It tells the community that we listen to their complaints and we're doing something about it. But it also acts as a deterrence to those that want to partake in this behavior. And this will continue. This will continue not just in the summer, in the fall and in the winter. We get some wild weekends in the winter, and we see these motorcycles hit the streets again. And I still encourage those to call 911, even though we may not prevent every incident. That provides us with intelligence. It gives us patterns, and we use that intelligence to deploy. Thank you.
Stephen?
And we can open up to some crime and police questions, if you will, please.
For Chief O'Neill, can you describe the crime statistics in precincts that have neighborhood policing?
Hey, Ozzy, I'll get back to you with specifics, how we're doing in each precinct. We're up to 26, and we're going over 50% once we hit October, so I'll get back to you with individual precincts.
Chief, in that same regard, the precincts covered, or that cover the parade route in Quebec, are they NCO precincts yet?
Yeah, the 7-1 and the 7-7 are.
The planning that went into trying to avoid some of the violence at both Quebec and the rest of the
Yeah, sure. I mean, the NCOs were involved in that, but most of that we did through Bob's people with the gang takedown. He had a very large takedown, recovered a number of guns, and then just deploying resources into the 7-1 and 7-7 leading up to the parade.
Was there any change in C-Summons directive with regard to public urination, open containers, since the Criminal Justice Reform Act created civil penalties for those? And at Joubert, were any civil penalties dished out as opposed to criminal?
Larry Byrne, Deputy Commissioner for Legal Matters.
That legislation is being enacted. The summonses are not in operation yet, so we're not able to use them. We'll start using them probably within the next 6 to 8 months. They have to be printed and we have to train the officers, but they weren't available yet for this weekend.
Courtney?
Back to Joubert and for the mayor and the commissioner. When you talk about the resources that were put there, doubling out of officers, the lights, etc., it seems like a lot. What else could possibly be done year in, year out? You see these shootings time and again.
Well, look, I think there's more to be done, and we are going to do a very clear after-action review to find out what we can do better. But I remind you of the second part of Chief O'Neill's presentation about the parade. Not many years ago in this town, the parade was very problematic, the parade itself on Labor Day. And there were many violent activities that were a part of it. NYPD systematically figured out over years how to change that. And as you heard, this year the parade went well. That was true in years past. Also, that same process had to be gone through with the St. Patrick's Parade, with the Puerto Rican Parade. We had long problematic histories for years. And the NYPD had to figure out a strategy that would break through and then keep it that way, and succeeded in all three of those cases. We have to do the same now with Joubert. So we're going to look at all options. Joubert will continue. It's an event that's very important to the community, and about 250,000 people came. But we're going to look at every conceivable way to make it safer.
Some of those options, just because it seems
Yeah, it's not time. I don't believe, I respect the question, but I don't think it's time to theorize about that. There's going to be a very specific after-action review, and then we're going to come forward with an updated plan.
Back there. You said yesterday that all options were on the table. Now you're saying Joubert will continue. So the option that's off the table is not holding the parade?
Yeah, and I think it was pretty clear yesterday that we were not including the option of ending something which has gone on for decades and decades. We have to find a way to make it safer, just like, as I said, the three very large parades had a long history of disorder and violence. Each one of them was brought under control. We'll do the same here with Joubert.
On that, because in particular the St. Patrick's Day Parade and the Puerto Rican Day Parade, most of the incidents around those over the years involved disorderly conduct, quality of life issues. There were very few killings. I can only remember one related to the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It's a very different order of incident, much more violent here. No incidents in those parades involving year after year of murders.
I have a different view of it. Let's have the experts speak to it first.
You're correct. The nature of some of the violence that's associated with Joubert is different than the levels of violence at other events that the mayor has mentioned, the many, many large-scale events that we have policed over the years. That the process after the events of last year was to engage everybody who was involved in Joubert, the organizers, community, religious leaders, business leaders, the political establishment, and the various community groups to all come together, because the policing of these events is a shared responsibility. Police cannot do these parades on our own. We rely a lot on the community self-policing many of the activities at these events. And so that's what we attempted to do this year. One, the permitting of the parade to bring some structure to it. Two, the idea of shared responsibility. Going forward, as the mayor has indicated, that we'll do a review, as we do of all of these events, from within the police perspective, take that perspective into the larger discussions that will now begin to be held, similar to what went on last year, where Borough President Adams and the city council members, Jemani Williams and others who represent that area, helped to lead that discussion. Going forward, that we can't speak. I certainly can't. I won't be here. But even Chief O'Neill, coming in as commissioner, is not in a position to address what changes may occur, because we'll still be involved in very extensive discussions around the event.
Melissa.
Mr. Mayor, what pushback or pressure, if any, did you hear this morning? You say today that you probably were clear yesterday that it would not be canceled. Not everybody played it that way. Did you hear from the community this morning?
No, I thought it was clear, Melissa, and happy to clarify it. We talked about yesterday all the things that have been done to prepare. And I think they were very, very important efforts. As you heard in the analysis that Chief O'Neill gave, a number of guns were gotten off the street, a number of gang members were apprehended in advance, et cetera. Those are the kind of things we want to do going forward, unquestionably. But we still have more to do. So I was speaking in the context of an event. It's obviously been around for decades, and we have to fix and we have to do more to address, and we will.
Chief Boyce, the pending matter with Karina Vetrano's homicide, after you put out the sketch and after you focused on the northern area of the park down in Howard Beach, what kind of level of intelligence and feedback have you gotten in terms of that sketch person? And are you still, now a month later, are you still of the view that this was a chance encounter that led to the death?
Yes, Tony, we do still believe it's a chance encounter. We're up to 122 tips. That sketch provided a big increase in our tips. Right now, we're active investigations on 23 of those tips. So 122, I think we're in the 80s when we put out that, and it did exactly what we wanted to do, was engage in more of the public calling in. So going forward with this, we still have our DNA sample. We're still trying to find that person, and that's where we are with the case right now. I said we then moved into East New York, Brooklyn, and South Ozone Park, and that's where we are right now, because we don't see anybody leaving through the 106 Howard Beach area. So we're still at that location. I must say that the same homicide team who just solved this case over in 107 and also solved the Iman case are now going back with all their resources back into the Vetrano case.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Police Commissioner, some members of the City Council, getting back to Givet, have suggested the use of scanners to keep or detect guns or other weapons. And some people are wondering whether you might want to go back to stop, question, and frisk during the period before Givet to try to, send a message to people that it's not acceptable to carry weapons for that event.
Well, Marcia, it's never acceptable to carry weapons in this city, and NYPD has been doing more and more to get guns off the street. That's why the numbers of gun seizures are up substantially. So we're going to address a whole range of things that will make the event safer. But as I referred to previously, I remember very vividly the amount of disorder and sometimes violence that we saw at other parades in the past. I saw it with my own eyes, and we all remember how troubling those situations are. They had to be addressed one by one, and the NYPD found a way to do it. So we're going to do it again here. That's the bottom line. What we started with was a massive increase in police presence, the light towers, and the initiatives before Givet began, the gang takedowns, the gun seizures. We're going to go farther. But it wouldn't be responsible to conjecture on each and every possible proposal until we do a very formal review of what happened here.
Tina?
Chief Boyce, can you tell us more about the arrest of Reginald Moyce, was it? How do you spell his last name?
Sure.
How was he and what was he doing about it?
Okay, his name is Reginald Moyce, M-O-I-S-E. He's a 20-year-old male. He lives on Flatbush Avenue. He has, Tina, most of his arrests are sealed. He has 5 prior to the DWI, and they're all sealed. So we won't get too much further into that. He makes statements to 2 people and implicates himself. And he makes statements to my detectives as well, that he may have shot somebody. That he did not know the gun was loaded. And he makes a concerted effort to get rid of the gun directly thereafter, which is leaving it at that friend's apartment.
Chief, and maybe the commissioner wants to weigh in too, what is going on with these ice cream bandits, and what resources have you devoted to it, and do you treat this as a serious epidemic?
We treat every crime as a serious problem. I don't know if epidemic is the word, but it's a pattern run by the Grand Larceny Division. Right now, what they're doing is taking ice cream from one vendor and stealing it and then selling it to another for profit. That's what's going on with this case. We have two separate patterns with it.
Commissioner, did you have any thoughts on this? Have you spoken to Mr. Katzimatidis?
Well, actually, I'm intrigued that Steve Davis came up with a recommendation that we assign our cold case squad to it. That as a last resort, if the other efforts don't work, maybe put the cold case squad on it.
Can someone talk about the 88% increase in murders on Staten Island? Is there any concern about that pattern and why that might be happening?
A lot of them are domestic violence related, but Bob, do you have more specifics relative to that?
Yeah, I don't think too many of those crimes are open right now. Most of them are domestic. We did see the uptick in the one-to-one, I believe it is. So most of them are solved right now. I have a great detective unit out there. It's one of those things that are hard to explain. It's just an uptick, and if you remember last year, there was an uptick in robberies that were creating homicides there. We haven't seen that this year. We've seen domestic being the driver over there.
So is it because it's a small area, it's like a fluke every year? There might be one thing driving it?
I wouldn't call it a fluke. I just call it there's different things that happened that you try. We had three persons stabbed in one location in the homeless shelter. So it's just one of those things that happen from time to time. That it's one specific motive that makes no sense why it's all happening there.
Mr. Mayor, on 50A, when we were talking about mayoral control of 421A, you lobbied, you gathered folks who were supporters, you held events. When we were talking about terrorism funding, yet Mr. Bratton had the delegation out. Are you planning on holding events to try to get Albany to make 50A allow for disciplinary matters to be public?
I'd like to see the law changed, and I'll work with others who feel the same way to figure out what the right strategy is to achieve that. Again, we have to talk that through. Albany legislative session doesn't begin until January, and obviously, as you know, the vast majority of work is done in June. But I'd like to figure out a way to get that changed. So I want to figure out whatever's going to work.
Mr. Mayor, regarding your promise to hold police officers more accountable, specifically in this case, NYPD member Candelario on Staten Island, how do you respond to claims that the city's interpreting the law that keeps it from releasing the officer's records? The interpretation you're using is very different.
My understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding across the board from the lawyers both here at the police department and in the law department is that the state law is clear, and it's our obligation to follow state law, as in all matters. But if we think state law should be changed, we can work to change it. And I think a lot of people around the state would agree with that change.
Your way would be releasing. If you didn't have that law in the way right now, would you be in favor of releasing?
Again, I think the law should be changed so that we can release those kind of documents.
Mayor, just going back to Jovet, you've cited these other parades as examples from the past, but one of the key differences here is that Jovet is something that happens in the nighttime. It's running through neighborhoods that you have all discussed are having some real issues with gang violence and gun violence. Doesn't that make it a significantly different question than these parades that you keep hearing?
Well, each one is different. There's no two ways about that. Each parade had a different history and a different tradition. But what united those three parades I mentioned, St. Patrick's, Puerto Rican Parade, and the Caribbean Parade itself on Labor Day, is they all had a history of disorder and violence, and they all had to be brought under control one by one. And the NYPD succeeded in doing that. We're going to do that here, too. I agree with you, being at night is a different reality. I think it's important, just one quick point, I think it's important for people to recognize this event grew over decades organically in the community. I think this is the time, this year was the time the NYPD applied the most systematic strategy and obviously the most troop strength to addressing it, and we're going to keep doing that. So I think there's more that we can and will do. The first thing to do is to get an after-action report and to sit down, both NYPD and community members, and figure out the next steps.
Two more on police. Juliet.
Yes, on Juve for the mayor and the police commissioner, would you be considering a curfew at all for Juve activities? And also, how do you put police or patrol these private parties or social club parties or barbecues where a lot of the drinking and socializing?
I'll start and turn to the commissioner. Again, you're hitting the core of the problem. This is part of a larger tradition in a lot of communities that goes back to their homelands People are going to be celebrating. Our job is to control that and make it safe. But I don't think anyone can have the illusion that if we said tomorrow there is no Juvet, that Juvet is going to go away. It's part of people's lives, just like so many other celebrations of different heritages. Our job is to make it safe and make the changes we have to, but we're going to be very systematic in not addressing one theory or another or one option or another until we go through a thorough review.
In the back there.
But a curfew doesn't eliminate the activity, it would put a stop at some point.
Chief Powers, who is the commanding officer for that borough, as well as Brooklyn North, on holiday weekends, and in particular this holiday weekend, there's very, very significant enforcement of the barbecues, parties you're referencing, that, not reporting those numbers, but they shut a lot of those down during the course of the weekend when they do get out of hand, out of control, of the calls coming into 311, 911. Large part of when we talk about the importance of quality of life, broken windows enforcement, that's people calling, complaining about those parties going to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, where we do shut down a lot of them. But your point is well taken that this event, because it occurs in the neighborhood where many of the participants actually live, there's a lot of related activities, house parties, et cetera, that are part of the celebration. And it compounds the policing issues, but doesn't necessarily make it impossible to police.
Okay, in the back and then up front, then we have to move on from police, okay?
Information on the shooting in Williamsburg.
Sure. Last night there was a shooting. There was a homicide of that individual. He was walking out of a building. We have it on video down the street that an individual was walking out with 2 others. When they got into the street, 2 of the 3 individuals began to fight, fisticuffs, back and forth, at which point we see our victim here start to run. Again, grainy video, we're still going forward with it. We then see a male produces a firearm and shoots him in the back. Victim's name is Jesus Pimentel. Right now we're trying to pull other video to see if we can find out more about these 2 individuals that we're looking for, one being the shooter. But this happens on North 6th Street, normally not a problematic neighborhood in the city. So we'll go forward from there. He is from Jackson Avenue up in the Bronx, Pimentel. So we're trying to find out why he was there and exactly what started the fight that led to his to the shooting.
Last on police over here.
To the mayor. Mr. Mayor, you said that Joubert has this decades-long tradition, but oral historians, people in the community, all agree that until recently it was just small groups of people, doing, painting themselves and running around. Not 250,000 people, engaged in all kinds of affray. So it doesn't seem reasonable to place Juvet in the same category, even as the West Indian Day Parade, much less the St. Patrick's Day Parade or the Puerto Rican Day Parade, which have much longer histories. What is the...
I don't know every nuance of the history. We're going to look at everything when we do our after action review, and we're going to talk with community members. But again, let's be consistent that if people are going to be out celebrating, we have to find a way to keep it safe. We're not ever going to turn our back on safety problems. We have to address them head on. And from my point of view, it's quite clear. There's a large celebration happening. We took a lot of measures this year. We have to take even more.
We have to move on to the next.
We're going to do off topic, so let us turn to other topics.
We will leave you.
It's been a pleasure. Congratulations to all of you. Hey, John, cold case. Cold case. Cold case. Proud of it. Okay. All right, we are going to off topic. Yes, sir.
Last week on the radio, you congratulated a grocery store owner who said that he employs illegal immigrants. And you said thank you for employing this guy.
Well, it's not exactly what I said, but continue.
But, he's admitting to violating federal law. Are there other instances of federal employment?
What I said to him was, He was being honest about something that now we have almost 12 million undocumented immigrants in this country. And I was very clear in that broadcast, this is just a joke. How you have 12 million people in the country and act like our current legal system is actually functioning when it comes to this matter. This is the biggest don't ask, don't tell in history. And a lot of the corporate sector is a part of it, and both political parties have been a part of it. Let's be real. And it's gone on now for decades and decades. So I just was saying to him, I appreciated he was honest about it, and I appreciated that he was saying, I've got people working for me, they're good people, they're hardworking people, they're just trying to provide for their families, and he was understanding them as human beings. That's what I was expressing my appreciation for.
Employers who do that are cheating the public because they're not paying FICA, their employees are probably not paying.
Huge changes that are needed in our laws. That do you think if any individual employer changed their behavior, it's going to change the reality of 12 million people? We've got to fix the laws. That's why we need comprehensive immigration reform. That's all I got for you. Go ahead.
So last week I asked you about shelter beds on Staten Island, and I later found out that one of 3 homeless shelters that were actually on Staten Island, only 3, was closed at the end of June, and spoke to the provider on Staten Island, and she said another 50 beds were lost from churches on Staten Island over the last year. So that leaves very few beds for a lot of homeless people on Staten Island, and given the political fight that have to wage to get any more beds, why would you allow a homeless shelter to close, and where do you go from here?
If it wasn't working well enough, as we've said, we'll close shelters that aren't working. That doesn't mean there won't be situations where we can't reopen them in some cases, but we're not going to keep a shelter going that isn't working. Obviously we moved out of the hotels. So we said it, I had the town hall meeting in Councilman Mattio's district, and I said we have to open up shelter capacity in Staten Island for Staten Islanders. And this is the shape of what we want to create now going forward with the shelter system. You know all the big strokes. We want to get out of hotels. We want to get out of clusters. We want to reduce the size of the shelter system over time. But while we need a shelter system, it should be to the maximum extent possible that a shelter serves people from the surrounding community. There's lots of Staten Islanders who need shelter and have to go off the island to get it. And there's lots of people from various communities that should be sheltered to the maximum extent possible in the community they come from. So we're reorienting the whole shelter situation in that vision, again, trying to stay out of hotels and clusters. So we're going to work with the leadership of Staten Island to find an appropriate setting, and obviously we're going to work particularly with houses of worship.
So you do think that you are going to open up a shelter or some sort of...
Yeah, I said that back at the town hall meeting with Councilman Mattio. We have to create shelter capacity in Staten Island for Staten Islanders. And we have to do it in a way that allows us to stay out of hotels. Awesome.
A two-part question. One is, Gwen Carr, Eric Garner's mother, said that you should be ashamed of yourself for not releasing Daniel Pantaleo's record. And then secondly, she sort of made the argument that when a person like her son gets killed, the police release the background information if he has any arrests, and that because of 50A, the same thing isn't happening. Is that a fair comparison, that the police disciplinary records aren't released, but a victim of an alleged abuse is? Can you see where there's that frustration?
I can understand the frustration, but I don't think they're the same thing. And this is, again, about the law. A lot of times when we're having these conversations, we can ask all we want about our opinions, but the law is the law, and it's quite clear what the law says from our point of view, and we have to respect the law. That doesn't mean we can't change it, and I think, as I said a few days back, I think there's going to be a lot of energy in Albany for that change, especially given this moment in history. I think a lot of people will think that's a smart thing to do. But I don't think it's the same thing as talking about the background of other people. Public servants are governed by very specific laws. Yes, sir.
Wait, and the response to her statement about you being ashamed of yourself?
I'm never surprised when someone expresses their views, and obviously she has deep emotions about what happened to her son, but I think we're doing things in a lawful manner, and I think we can change the state law.
Last week, a Supreme Court justice ruled that the public advocate had a right to sue the city on behalf of New Yorkers. How do you respond to that, particularly since your administration's argument in a number of lawsuits has been that she does not have standing?
Yeah, I think it's case by case. That's my understanding. That was not a blanket assessment. That was about that case. So, obviously we felt differently. I don't know if there's an appeal planned or anything like that, but I think that was about that case. Marcia?
So, Mayor, just going back to Gervais for a second, I wonder if the city should be giving out permits to events where violence is expected, and also what your time frame is for coming up with some kind of overall solution sometime before the next.
We don't accept violence ever. Now, to the question, again, I remind you, for decades, permits were given to the Puerto Rican parade, to the St. Patrick's parade, to the Caribbean parade on Labor Day, and there was violence, and people bluntly expected it. Well, that's not the whole truth. It was a lot of different things. But the bottom line is we don't accept any violence. We attempted an entirely different strategy this year, permitting for the first time and huge amounts of NYPD presence and all the other measures you've heard. Didn't get us far enough. We have to do more. That effort's going to start immediately, and we're going to look at any number of changes because we don't accept any violence. So it's literally, I don't want any stereotyping here. There's no such thing as us accepting any level of violence in this city.
Frame, I mean, do you expect by, say, like Christmas, that you're going to have some kind of solution, or is it going to take longer than that?
Well before Christmas, we'll have a full analysis of what happened. So in the next few months, we'll have a full analysis of what happened. We'll have, I'm sure, initial ideas. But I don't want to give you a deadline yet because literally we're talking about an event that just happened. Soon we'll be able to say when we expect our review to be complete and what steps we're going to take. Yeah.
On the same topic, I wasn't there for your press conference yesterday, but I read the coverage of it, and it sounded like you were putting the idea of canceling G-Day on the table.
Look, I thought it was clear, and I'm sorry if it wasn't. But when I was talking in the context of an ongoing event, how we go about making it safer, I thought it was clear.
Between then and now?
No, it's literally, this one's as simple as it could be. I haven't talked to anyone. I thought that was heard as what I was saying. If anyone didn't hear it that way, allow me to clarify. Any other questions?
Where did you come up with a figure of 29,000 lives saved? How did you come
Simply by saying if the murder rate had continued at the rates it was before Bill Bratton, Jack Maple, and everyone else changed policing fundamentally. If we had stayed near that level, that's how many lives more would have been lost. It's obviously a theoretical construct, but it's a measure of just how much this city has changed. And when you look bluntly at some other cities, and I feel very bad for them, where their numbers are high and in some cases even going up, it's a reminder of how far New York City has traveled.
Two more questions.
Mr. Mayor, back to Juve again. Is the overnight nature of the celebration a problem, do you think? And should the city look at the permitting in terms of the hours, possibly, and move it?
Well, that's when I say, so to clarify the previous question, when I say all options are on the table, that's a legitimate question, obviously. The hours and everything else about how it is put together. I think to will away a celebration involving 250,000 people doesn't make sense. But to say, look, let's look at every possible way of going about it that could be safer and work with community leaders and community members on what makes sense from their point of view and what they believe is right in terms of their safety. So we're going to look at a whole host of options, but it's too early to rule in or rule out any specific strategies. Yeah.
And just to follow on that, do you have any concerns with the city giving money to the organization that has put on this event, the fact that there's city funds that have gone to the Juve organization, given that it's not an event that has been fully sanctioned over the years?
Well, I'm starting with this year, which is when we've put the full focus of the PD and this administration on this event, and it was permitted, and obviously there were extensive preparations. So, again, we have to determine where we are going to go forward, but anything we do is going to come with very, very serious rules and stipulation. We just don't accept violence. I think that's the whole, even though I understand 100% why people are asking these questions, you have to put it in the context of the rest of the press conference too. We don't accept violence. We're going to continue to drive it down. We're going to continue to do these gang takedowns on a higher than ever level. We're going to continue to get guns off the streets at an unprecedented level. This is what we're doing as a police force, and neighborhood policing keys into all of this and will amplify all of this. So the conversation we will have is, how do we have an event that is free of violence? What's it going to take? Because that's our goal. We do not accept, someone said to me today, do you accept X level of shootings? No, we don't accept any violence whatsoever. It's as simple as that. Thanks, everyone.